Unsurprisingly, the Internet Archive has an ingestion process where you can fill out forms and say that you have things that you want to donate to the archive, specifically physical items. Anything from old tapes and books all the way through to machinery and, in some rare cases, artifacts that are perhaps unique. We often say no because it turns out that we already have the book or we already have the materials. But last year, we were offered a collection, and after some back and forth, the collection was not just acquired, but sent to my office. It's the back catalog and library of CD-ROM Incorporated, one of the first companies, as its name implies, to be marketing in CD-ROMs. It's a very odd collection, and while I would love to keep it in line while I work on more pressing projects, it became more pressing because it's 1,500 CDs, and they've got to get out of here. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Jeff Atwood and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. CD-ROM Incorporated is out of Fort Myers, Florida, and it's been around since at least the late 80s. It's officially listed as a government supplier and contractor, which is why it's easy to find its history. They dealt initially in duplication and processing of CD-ROMs, and then moved, ironically, into data destruction, being a place you could send hard drives or other electronic media to, and they would definitively destroy it and certify the destruction. Somehow, their library didn't fall under that, and the founder and other employees wanted to get rid of it and thought of the Internet Archive. As I said, this happens quite a bit. The archive is notified that a drug education center wishes to get rid of its old, out-of-date books, and maybe we'll take them because it's a specialist library. Other times, people will offer us their personal collections, and we provide them with an app to compare it against our holdings, and if there isn't a large amount of duplication, we'll take it. Sometimes we've taken entire video stores or record shops. In this particular case, this turned out to be 16 boxes of CD-ROMs. They were packaged by the donor and mailed to me directly at this office. The collection is variant, and as I started to open up boxes, I really started to get a feel of what it was. I feel there's something interesting in all of these old materials, and especially how, when a company is told, just send everything, they really do. This is a collection of nearly 35 years of CD-ROM related materials, everything from initial prototypes all the way through to commercial products that were available at different times that clearly this company either purchased or was lent for them to duplicate themselves. As I started to go through them, a lot of old memories of dealing with CD-ROMs came back. This is truly a core sample of what CD-ROMs were for. Because of CD.textfiles.com and Discmaster, there's a natural bias on my part for shovelware CDs full of old programs that were sold as incredible repositories, when in fact they were just amateur archiving of bulletin board systems and later FTP sites. But there are also an entire other range of CDs that came out over the years, and this collection was full of them. Worker compensation statistics, federal and state government information, personal projects by artists, maybe visual collections from a photographer, or even a music and sound multimedia experience done with less than 500 of them ever printed. There's pieces of different computer history in here as well. Instructions on how to even use a computer or what a computer is good for, introductions to the internet, and even financial information for family law and other considerations in doing basic personal business. Nothing is off the table. And so the next question is, what happens? Well, ultimately, they'll be stored safely at the Internet Archive's physical locations, but being the software curator, I can't let these go by. I also don't have the time to do a complete and total scanning of every single scrap of paper associated with the CD-ROMs. So, compromise happens. Right now, I have 4 CD-ROM drives dedicated to this project, and I have 4 different copies of ImageBurn processing them. Here's the solution. Here's where I currently am. It's critical for the most vital parts of a CD-ROM to become as publicly available as possible. So, of course, every CD-ROM that's unique should be converted to a digital file. I should also scan the front of the CD-ROMs where some metadata exists that's nowhere else, and also scan the front of a booklet, if there is one. This is, to me, a good balance between doing everything and getting enough to get the point. If, after a while, the public finds out that one of the CD-ROMs is an actual artifact of great value and every single page of the booklet needs to be scanned, we'll start talking. Right now, it's important to get the data up where it can be accessed, processed by Diskmaster and other people who do deep dives on CD-ROMs. I'm happy to say that out of the 1,500 CD-ROMs, many of them are reading just fine. And if I'm running my system with 4 different drives and 4 different lines of processing, I'm going to be able to do 100 to 150 of these disks every day, demolishing this pile and letting me get back to a few other projects. But it does take all of my concentration. So many things go wrong when you're imaging a CD-ROM. Maybe it has an actual physical flaw. Other times it's a version of CD-ROMs so old that a CD-ROM reader doesn't know what to do with it. This is a phenomenon I don't think people know about. Between 1988 and into the early 1990s, ISO format was a little bit fluid. It wasn't quite as standard, or at least it wasn't quite as definitive as people might think. CD-ROMs that read fine in the first few years were being read by machines that were much more open. But as things settled down and calcified into actual deterministic rules, those older CD-ROMs became a little harder to read, and they're going to need some special love and care to be turned digital. And in what I consider to be a mark of how early this collection is, I have a CD-ROM. And by that I mean I have a CD-ROM that was made by 3M to send out to manufacturers and software makers to show what a CD-ROM is. It is an actual spec CD-ROM. This is what I look like. Evaluate me. Look at my different formats and the files on me. This is what a CD-ROM is going to be. Thickness, manufacturing aspects, everything. You don't bump into that all that often. There are tours on how CDs are made. There's early specifications about the manufacturing of CD-ROMs. There's also a lot of duplicates. Some of their titles they just threw into a box, so suddenly I have 20 copies. Much less work for me. There's also products from many other different firms, from software companies of the time or government projects that were obviously made by others, but that CD-ROM Incorporated was either selling, evaluating, or learning from. There's an interesting quality to this library. It is both useful as education to know definitively how things were, but it is also a very critical snapshot in time. The data on these is immutable. It is provable. You read it, you discover something in need of citation, and if a court case or a master's thesis or anything else needs evidence that something was really like something was a few years back, it's going to be on this immutable piece of plastic. I've dealt in situations where fortunes and truth lay on these pieces of plastic. It's nice to know there's going to be a lot more of that. This collection is wildly strange in terms of quality. There are CDs that claim they have 500 games and have exactly 16 megabytes of data written on them. Others simply say final, and then I read them, and I have no idea what they are. When I'm in this process, in this zone of dealing with 4 different disks, they're all reading at different speeds, they are all running into errors that I have to account for, and I am constantly opening shrink wrap to be able to have a good pile ready to be read. This machine is voracious. It is going through these dozens of CD-ROMs every couple of hours, and it's on me to open up all of these boxes, open up all of this wrapping, and make these different CD-ROMs ready for their new digital file life. All that said, for all of the wearing on my fingers and the repetitiveness that makes my arms ache at the end of the day, this is among my favorite things to do. To have a true, verified historical library become something that the Internet Archive can host, that everyone will use, everyone will find treasures in, and which will become part of the public conversation as time progresses. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I'd really like to finish it as soon as possible. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It. Thanks to James Bekoyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, David Fisher, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Joey Mink, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. I guarantee that it will be very easy to find this collection. It'll probably go under a sub-collection at the archive, thanking CD-ROM for their donation, and it'll be beautiful to see what comes of it. Discmaster will begin processing them as soon as they join the pack, so we'll find usefulness and depth and meaning in all of them going forward. How could I ever get tired of this?